I want to welcome you all here to Facebook Live on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT, and those of you on MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT that are listening, as well as on WakeUpCallDT.com that are listening. It is now week 14, hard to believe, but week 14 inside of fantasy football, inside of the NFL, and we're inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. And you can also go there for curbside pickup, takeout, and delivery by calling 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat. Mr. Sofka, good morning and happy week 14 of the NFL.
Hey, how you doing, Dan?
I'm doing very well. And, you know, Mike, above all things, you and I believed. We believed this was going to happen. We had faith that it was going to happen. We stayed true to everything. We did more fantasy football work this season than we've ever done together. And we've done, did more preparation, did more everything. And we believed. We kept working. We believed that our work was going to pay off and mean something and be for something. And here we are 14 weeks into the season. What does it mean to you that we stayed true and faithful, that we'd have a season and we had hope, and the fact that we're in week 14 of a season that some people thought would never happen?
Yeah, well, it's what we do. We do this every day, and there's a reason for it because it makes it easier. Believe it or not, the more you do something, the easier it gets, the better you get at the same time as well. So if you just do a little bit each day, it comes off and pays off in the long run, and you can face adversity, you can get through bad times. So that's pretty much life. I mean, look at me. What's the temperature like there in Syracuse area today?
34.
Yeah, it's in the mid-50s here, so the world is ending in Florida right now. Cats and dogs are living together. I mean, but we are going to muscle through this. We are going to get through this 50-degree weather. I think we're going to be fine here in Florida.
My hopes to you as I hibernate up here up north, we're going to jump right into Thursday football. The Patriots will be taking on the Rams. That's game number 1 in week 14 of fantasy football advice. Take it away, Mr. Sofka.
Yeah, well, the Patriots coming off that huge win. I mean, they had special team scores. They had punt return scores. They had some guy with some Polish name that nobody's ever heard of scoring touchdowns left and right. It was a crazy game. And the Rams, who would have thought that they would have walked in Arizona and Jared Goff show up and throw for 350 yards? But, it's going to be a challenging game for both sides. I think Jalen Ramsey is going to play a big part in this game simply because, well, not because the Patriots have an excellent receiver. It's just he's that guy that seems to be everywhere he needs to be when he needs to be at that star position. So, looking at this game from a fantasy perspective, I don't see a lot of value on New England's side. I mean, the highest ranked person I have is Cam Newton at 25. Heads up, there's only 32 teams, so that should tell you something. I mean, all the running backs are in the 30s and 40s. Wide receivers, I don't know which one's going to show up, if at all, if any of them show up. So I'm not playing any of those guys. On the other side of the ball, though, Jared Goff, number 13 on my rankings. And the running back situation, Cam Akers seems to be the guy on the rise. He put up a little over 70 yards and a touchdown this past week. Incrementally, he's getting better and better. And again, I've said it all season. You got to give these rookies time. They haven't had rookie camp. They didn't have the in-person experience all summer long that they needed to have simply because of the COVID restrictions. So Cam Akers is going to continue to be on the rise. Darrell Henderson, number 43 on my rankings. Cam Akers, number 34. The wide receivers is where the money's at on this team, though. Cooper Kupp landed at 18 and Robert Woods at 14. Tyler Higbee, 21 and 25 for Gerald Everett on the tight ends. I'm looking at this game from a fantasy perspective only, but if I had a bet on this game, I'd have to take the Rams at home.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on in this and a lot of things that were stated. I'm looking at the fact that, the wide receiver that led New England in their 45-0 trouncing of the Chargers on the road, which was insane. I picked the Chargers in the game, and I said, I wouldn't be surprised if New England goes over there because it's still Bill Belichick, and as long as Bill Belichick's there, great things can happen. But Gunnar Olszewski is the guy that led the team. Gunnar Olszewski, I'll say that again. Do you know where he went to college? Bemidji State. Bemidji State is where he went, and that is in Minnesota. It looks like Oswego, for those of you in central New York. The buildings look like Oswego. Bemidji State is where he went to school, in Minnesota, and now he's leading the Patriots last week in a 45-0 romping. Absolutely insane. Nothing surprises me under Bill Belichick, though. I mean, in all honesty, the man, like Mike said, he's controlled the weather before. He's done a ton of things. It just seems to work out for the gentleman. I don't know how he does what he does. I don't know where he gets these superpowers from. I don't know what black magic. Hopefully he didn't make a deal with the devil. I have no idea what's going on. But the reality of it all is Bill Belichick is successful. And 45-0 against a Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert, who's done a lot of good things this season, has really had himself an awesome debut in the NFL. And then leave it up to Bill Belichick to figure him out, make him look bad, have him throw 2 interceptions. The guy passed the ball 53 times in the game trying to come back and win. And Cam Newton, I think, only attempted 19 passes in the game. So, the New England Patriots scoring on all different which ways, making it happen, getting it done. And looking at this, I mean, it's like Sony Michel showed up. Gunner, like I said, Damiere Byrd showed up, and N'Keal Harry showed up. Damian Harris got me 80 yards on the ground. That's good stuff. Jarrett Stidham got in for 3 passes and was 2 of 3 and threw a touchdown pass. That's got to make you feel good. When the starter and the backup both score on you, that's got to make you feel great. Not a lot of great things happening for Austin Eckler or Kalen Ballage. Not a lot of good things happening for Justin Herbert. Just a bad game, and New England figured them out. And why wouldn't they, Mike? They seem to do the things that we don't think would happen. And they're playing a Rams team on Thursday night that did something we didn't think would happen. They beat the Cardinals. The Cardinals have been in a downward spiral. Believe it or not, folks, the Rams are 8-4 right now. The Rams are 8-4. The Cardinals are 6-6. The Rams are fighting for the opportunity to take this division, obviously. And they were able to do a lot of things in this game and take over. Shout out to the Rams for what they were able to put forward. Kyler Murray did have 3 touchdowns in the game. Goff only had 1 touchdown. But Cam Akers scored, Darrell Henderson scored, and Jared Goff scored on the ground. Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Gerald Everett, Malcolm Brown. A lot of guys got involved here. And it's great to see that Akers and Henderson and Malcolm Brown all got involved. Akers and Henderson on the ground. Akers getting 21 carries, Henderson only getting 3 in the game, but averaging 16.3 yards a carry for 49 yards. His longest one, which helped his statistics, were a 38-yard run. They got him all but 11 of his yards and a touchdown. And so, there's some good stuff to be said about that. But the Cardinals aren't looking good. The Chargers didn't look like themselves. Now the teams that did it to them get to play each other. So for New England's side, I would say that Cam Newton, he was limited in practice with an abdomen injury. If he's able to play, if you have 2 quarterbacks, then I would definitely put him out there. I don't think he's a true starter. I think he's a 2, but if you have 2, then you can go ahead and do it. Jacoby Myers and Damiere Byrd. Damiere Byrd's numbers haven't been that high. Neither has N'Keal Harry. Gunnar Olszewski. I wouldn't go crazy over this, especially since you're in your playoffs right now. Jacoby Myers, there's really nobody I can trust. Damian Harris is somebody to look to. James White or Sony Michel is a flex. But Damian Harris is the one that I would look to as a low-end running back. Sony Michel as your flex. I really can't trust in the wide receiver core or the tight ends of New England. On LA's side, Jared Goff, not a bad play in this game. But because of what's been done by New England, especially on the road here, mind you, folks, if you're looking at the schedule right now, New England went to L.A. and is staying out in L.A. So, they're not going to be hurt by the constant travel back and forth. That's not going to affect them. And so there's something to be said about the fact that they just had a romping of the Chargers, and now they get to hang out there and play another game in L.A. So don't think that that's an advantage for the Patriots, or pardon me, an advantage for the Rams. The Patriots are doing just fine. So Jared Goff, I say, is a low-end 1, high-end 2. I like Darrell Henderson and Cam Akers in this game. Cam is limited with a shoulder injury. I like Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. And Gerald Everett and Tyler Higbee keep going back and forth, so you can't really trust in either one of them. The reality of it all in this matchup is that the fantasy value lies with the Rams, but the reality is that the Patriots kind of dictate everything still, even without Tom Brady, and that tells you how much control and positive work that we get from Bill Belichick. So in this matchup, I'm going to pick the Patriots, And Mike, refresh everybody again. Who did you go with in this matchup?
Who did I say? Yeah, I said the. Let's go with the Rams.
Okay, so Mike's going to go with the Rams. I'm going with the Patriots. I think the fantasy value lies with the Rams, but reality is Patriots, so that's where I'm going to go. Houston at Chicago. Houston knows they have a problem, and so does Chicago, but it's not as bad as the Jacksonville problem. So what do you have for Houston at Chicago?
Yeah, Houston can't believe what they... I mean, the look on J.J. Watt's face at the end of that game was something else, especially when they gave up a safety. I've seen a lot of safeties lately. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if there's something in the water or what, but and Chicago is Chicago. They're going to let you down. I mean, it's going to happen. They lost to Detroit. I mean, how can you lose to Detroit? You can't let that happen in your home crib. Now, I know the home field advantage isn't what it was in the past, but what I'm trying to say is these are two kind of bad teams right now. I mean, and not just kind of bad. They're bad. The good news is you can get some fantasy value out of some of these guys. Deshaun Watson, number 9 on my ranking this week. David Johnson trying to make his way all the way back. Number 20, Duke Johnson, number 44 on the rankings. Wide receivers, these guys are wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. That's Brandon Cooks, 21, and Kiki Kuti, number 26. Look out for Chad Hansen, too. Keep your eye on this cat making his way onto the field. I can't start Jordan Akins or Darren Fells. I just don't have any faith in those guys. And watch this. Now they're going to go out and have a huge game. What I do have faith in is more Chicago players than Houston players, because Houston's defense is not Chicago's defense. Mitchell Trubisky, number 15. That's your middle-of-the-road guy. And David Montgomery, number 8. There's your RB1. And Allen Robinson. He's going to be wide receiver 2 in this game, number 15 on the rankings. And watch out for Cole Kmet. He's slowly out-snapping Jimmy Graham, and that's because of his blocking ability, but that's opening up more opportunities for him because the other teams see him as the blocking tight end, so that's a good thing. He's number 18 on the ranking, while Jimmy Graham's number 39. I got to go with the better defense in this. I think Houston has more ability to put up some points, but just breaking this down, defense and fantasy value, how can I not go with the Bears? And they're going to be at home. I know they just lost to the Lions at home, but I don't think they're going to lose 2 in a row, and I don't think they're going to lose to the Texans.
Yeah, I think I think this is going to be a lower scoring game, and I trust Chicago's defense more than Houston, so I agree with you. Fantasy-wise, Deshaun Watson, it's hard to keep him off. He's a lower-end 1, but he's still a 1 or a mid-to-low-range 1. But he's somebody to put out there. I don't trust the Johnsons in the backfield. Brandon Cooks is, he's up and down. That's who he is. That's what he does. That's why I don't draft him. So, the reality of it all is most recently here, he had 5 catches for 65 yards. Kiki Kuti had 141 yards on 8 catches, 9 targets. So Kiki is the guy to put out in this one. We were waiting for him to show up, and last week he did against the Colts in a loss. So I would say Kiki Kuti is a tight end or a wide receiver 2. I put Cooks as a lower end 2 behind Kiki. I can't trust the tight ends in that situation. Mitch Trubisky's taken the starting job back. I don't see anything from that. I would say David Montgomery is your best play. Cole Kmet, like you said, is in a place right now where he just had the best game of his career. So that says something about him. And I want to go back to that if we look at Cole and what this team was able to do. By the way, Chicago, we talked about are they a contender or a pretender? They started off the season winning 5 of 6 games. Since then, they have lost 6 in a row. So they won 5 of 6. Now they're 0 for 6, which puts them at 5 for 7 on the season after losing to the Lions here, who just fired their head coach and general manager. Apparently that helps you. Atlanta and Detroit, even if it's minimal success and even if it's just short-lived, we've seen that when you fire your head coach and your GM during this NFL season of 2020, you end up winning at least 1 game. So I guess that's good for the team that does it. Allen Robinson, Anthony Miller, Darnell Mooney, nothing to really write home about. Cole Kmet, 5 catches on 7 targets, 37 yards and a touchdown in the game. Cole Kmet, I put him as, if you have an emergency guy that you need to put out there, nobody's on bye this week, but if you got injuries, He'll probably be out there. I would venture to say people can't even spell his name, so you'll be able to get to him first. It's Kmet. So go out and get him as a tight end too. But outside of that, the money's in David Montgomery. I don't see a ton of fantasy value. I would say Chicago's defense and special teams isn't a bad bet in this one, as long as Kiki doesn't go crazy. And if anybody is, I would lean on him to do it. But I'm going to go with Chicago in this. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, and I'm going to pick the Bears at home. Next game up, Mike, Andy Dalton versus Andy Dalton's old team. Dallas at Cincinnati, Cincinnati. What do you got?
Yeah, well, we're on to Cincinnati. That's an old Belichick thing, and I'll tell you what, Dallas couldn't wait to get out of that situation they were in on that Tuesday night game. That was a pathetic performance. Des Bryant finding out when he's on the field 2 hours before the game doing warm-ups, and they're like, "Hey, yo, come on back inside. We got to retest you." Oh, you're positive. For a lot of time just before the game, that 2 hours just before the game, that was a very tense situation for both teams involved in Tuesday's game. But Dallas looks to come back from that. They look to back. They're in a good spot here. I say a good spot because, well, they're playing Cincinnati, so anything can happen here. These are two bad teams. It is what it is, and I don't think I'm going to watch this game, but I think I'm going to keep track of it because there are one or two guys I'll probably be playing. One guy I won't be playing, all likelihood, is Cincinnati's Brandon Allen. I mean, he had a slight injury toward the end of the game. They brought in Ryan Finley, so I think Brandon Allen's going to continue to get the start, but he's number 22 on my rankings. Giovanni Bernard, number 13. Looks like Joe Mixon's still going to be out. So Giovanni Bernard just outside of an RB1. T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, this is an interesting one because T. Higgins looks like the more productive wide receiver on the team right now. I got him ranked 28, Tyler Boyd ranked 31, and of course I can't play any of the tight ends there. There's just nothing there for me. Going over to Dallas, Andy Dalton, number 18 on the rankings. Zeke Elliott, he looked like he was running with some purpose last night, although it didn't get them far. He's number 9 on my rankings. And Amari Cooper, number 27. CeeDee Lamb, number 30. And that's about it. I can't count on Dalton Schultz. I can't count on Michael Gallup, although he did score in the Tuesday game. You know, I would just rather look elsewhere. So looking at this game from a betting perspective, I'd probably have to take Cincinnati at home. But both these teams are bad.
Yeah, you know, you got two teams that lost their starting quarterbacks. You got Dallas, who lost Dak Prescott, and you got Cincinnati, who more recently lost Joe Burrow, the number 1 pick. So, you know, these are two teams that are reeling right now. It's an ugly game. I don't expect this to be pretty by any stretch of the imagination. What I do expect is for it to be what we don't expect it to be. Expect the unexpected. That's what they tell you on Big Brother. And that's what I see with Dallas at Cincinnati. They shouldn't both score in the 30s, but they probably will make this a 34-30 game. That's probably what it's going to end up being and what it's going to look like. As crazy as it sounds, you know, Dallas has already made things crazy this year, and at 3-9, they're still in the hunt for the playoffs, as insane as that sounds. Andy Dalton is playing against his old team, so if you need somebody in a pinch, this isn't a bad play for you because some guys play up for their against their old teams. I think he will. I think he could get 2 to 3 touchdowns in this game, and so I would look to him a little bit. Zeke Elliott, it's hard to keep him off the field and off your lineup, but he has been underperforming, and so not having Dak obviously keys in more on Zeke, and they've been able to shut him down a little bit. He had 77 yards on 18 carries. Not bad, so he's still worth putting out there, but he's a lower-end one. Michael Gallup and CeeDee Lamb lead the way. Dalton Schultz. Amari Cooper fell down the list here, 43 yards, but he did have a touchdown. All these guys are worth playing. None of them are wide receiver ones or tight end ones, but they're all worth putting out there. On Cincinnati's side of things, when I take a look at Cincinnati and where they really sit at right now, with Brandon Allen out there, it's hard for me to really key in on anybody and tell you where they should go. They just lost to the Dolphins 19-7. You know, I would say that Giovanni Bernard is the guy they're leaning on. I wouldn't lean on him. Tyler Boyd had 1 catch for 72 yards and a touchdown. T. Higgins is getting targeted by Brandon Allen, and he was getting targeted by Joe Burrow, so that's a good thing. 7 targets, 5 catches, 56 yards. Drew Sample, if you need to go after a tight end too, Drew Sample, not a bad play for you. T. Higgins still your best bet with Tyler Boyd as a flex. T. Higgins a wide receiver 2, I would say low end, high end 3. So the fantasy value leans a little bit more on the side of Dallas because he's going in to play his old team. I know that this could be a favorable matchup for him. Speaking on Andy Dalton, and I think that Dallas can score more points. So I'm going to go with Dallas in this game. Mike goes with Cincinnati. I'm going with Dallas in this matchup. The next one on the docket, Mr. Sofka, to speak about here inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly brought to you by the Wildcat Sports Pub, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. Curbside pickup, takeout, and delivery at 315-487-2222. And their dining room open as well on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. Kansas City at Miami, my brother. What do you got?
Yeah, Kansas City looks like they could blow this game wide open. Fantasy-wise, they look like they could blow this game wide open. But this is Miami. Miami's a team that figures out ways to win games. One thing they don't have to figure out is the weather. It's going to be nice. It's going to be 83 degrees in Miami for this game. But how could you not play any Chiefs? You already know that. Patrick Mahomes, number 1 again this week. Travis Kelce, number 1 again this week. Tyreek Hill dips all the way down to number 2 on my wide receiver rankings. Can't start any other receiver on the Chiefs, though. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire had a bad performance last week, but he was sick all week, non-COVID related. He's number 16 on my rankings. Le'Veon Bell didn't bounce off the screen to me, so he's number 48 this week, so I'm not even considering him in a flex necessarily. On the other side of the ball, though, Miami, you got to kind of like what they've been putting together. The thing I don't like is you really don't know who the quarterback's going to be. Is it going to continue to be Ryan Fitzpatrick, or is it going to continue to be Tua? I say they go with Tua, but I'm not going to rank either one of those guys against the Chiefs. I can't start any of the running backs. Maybe I could start, I checked that, maybe I could start Myles Gaskin. He's number 18 on my rankings. And Devontae Parker, number 12, that's the one wide receiver I can start. And Mike Gesicki I can start as well. He's number 11 on the tight end rankings. Looking at this game from a win-loss perspective, you have to go with Kansas City. I wouldn't be surprised if Miami made this one closer or even snuck this one out. But I got to go with Kansas City.
Yeah, I got to go with Kansas City in this matchup as well. I mean, obviously Miami's won some games. They've done some good things at home, and so there's a concern that, could they shock the world and win this game? But ultimately, I got to put it on Kansas City. I know Kansas City struggled with Vegas this season, but I would like to think that they would know what they're doing against Miami. So I'm going to go with Kansas City in the matchup. Obviously, there's a ton of fantasy value when it comes to Kansas City. You don't need us to tell you that, but it's our job to remind you if you need a little bit of a reminder. And, maybe today you got up and you bunked your head on the refrigerator, so you need some help with us letting you know what's going on. Happy to do that. So Kansas City in this matchup, obviously Pat Mahomes, obviously Clyde Edwards-Helaire, if he's able to play. He's questionable right now with a calf injury, with an illness. If that doesn't happen, Darwin Thompson's your sneaky flex coming out of Utah State and getting over 1,000 yards, and it was taught by my good friend and running backs coach. It's now at Texas Tech that used to be at Utah, DeAndre Smith. So Darwin Thompson, a little sneaky play for your fantasy day and your little playoff picture. Tyreek Hill, I like him too. McCole Hardman, Demarcus Robinson, and Sammy Watkins, they all trade off on who's going to get that touchdown every single week. We don't know who it's going to be, and that's why it puts us in that position where it is really tough to make that decision on who you should put out there and play because of the fact that they all share it. Demarcus had 39 yards, Sammy had 35, McCole had 15. They're not doing anything crazy. It lies with Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. Travis Kelce's still the best receiver on the team. Tyreek Hill, the best legs on the team. So Kelce, Hill, Clyde, if he's able to play. Darwin as a flex if Clyde does not play. Pat Mahomes worth the play as well. And then Sammy, Demarcus, and McCole. These are your more bottom-of-the-barrel flexes, not because they're not good, but because you never know who it's going to be, and they may put up 1 point for you or a goose egg, and nobody wants that in fantasy, especially during playoff time. On Miami side of things, to take a look at the Dolphins, Tua, it's hard to keep him off, but he's a quarterback 2 this week. Myles Gaskin, I'd say as a running back 3. And Devontae Parker and Mike Gesicki are guys that you could look at potentially putting out there. I don't think any of these, I mean, I know none of these guys, in my opinion, are ones, and a lot of them reside in the flex position or emergency situation because they're playing Kansas City. But we also know that Tua can do some good things. He knows what it's like to be on a massively high stage in Alabama. So, I think Gaskin as a running back 3, Gesicki going out there for you and being involved as well are probably your 2 best bets. Gesicki I'd still have as a low-end 1, and then Tua I'd have as a quarterback 2. His numbers weren't great. He had 296 yards and 1 touchdown, no interceptions in the win over Cincinnati 19-7. So, and Cincinnati obviously not as big of an opponent as Kansas City is going to be. So I will go with Kansas City, and we'll move on to a game that used to be a divisional matchup game. It's not anymore, as we had the realignment with Houston coming in back in 2002. Arizona at the New York Giants. What do you have, Mike?
Yeah, I like Arizona a lot. I think they're a good team. They don't show it all the time, though. That's the sad thing. What they do show is they got some fantasy value, though. For instance, Kyler Murray, number 4 on the rankings this week. DeAndre Hopkins, number 6 on the rankings this week. I can't really count on either of the running backs, but Kenyon Drake has been showing up a bit more than Chase Edmonds. Kenyon Drake, number 24 on the rankings, and Chase Edmonds, 35. And Dan Arnold, this guy looked like an all-star last game, but, consistency is what you need to know what you're going to get every time a guy goes out there. So this week, he's number 35 on the rankings. One thing we do know is that the Giants, even with that abysmal record, and even though sometimes they don't look that great, the Giants are in the lead in their division here, and that's a lot to be said. Considering they're 5-7, that's crazy. But they're one of the hottest teams lately. Their defense has been playing well. Colt McCoy held down the fort last week, or tried to. Daniel Jones, number 23 on the rankings this week. Wayne Gallman, number 21 on the rankings. The only wide receiver I can start there, though, is Sterling Shepard, especially in this matchup. Sterling Shepard, number 35 on the rankings. And Evan Ingram, number 4 on the tight end rankings. Look, I know Arizona's coming from the left coast to the east coast, and it's a 1 o'clock game. I understand all those things, but if I'm just looking at which team is better, I got to go with Arizona, and that's who I would pick in the game, Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to see what the Giants have been able to do thus far. And a big shout-out to 2 teams that have already clinched playoff berths, one in the AFC, one in the NFC. Kansas City has already clinched a berth at 11-1, and New Orleans has already clinched a berth at 10-2. And spoiler alert, I think that's going to be the Super Bowl. I had preseason, Mike and I were talking about it, and I had Kansas City, Dallas. And now that we've seen where Dallas has been, the game that I had was Dallas versus New Orleans for the rights to go to the Super Bowl. So to me, I had New Orleans right there. And now, the first 2 teams to clinch, could that be a little foreshadowing that the first 2 teams to clinch a playoff berth are the last 2 teams that are going to be playing this year? That would be pretty cool to come back and play this tape from December 9th, if and when that does happen. Kansas City and New Orleans already head into the playoffs, and they're the only 2 teams that have locked up a spot in the postseason. So kudos to you guys, and shout out to you guys for doing that and getting it done between the 2 of them. 21 wins and 3 losses. Really awesome. So with that being said, to go to Arizona first, Arizona has just been falling and falling and falling and falling. So I thought they'd be third in the NFC West. They are right now, but they're on a 3-game losing streak. Lost at Seattle, at New England, and at home against the Rams. They need to get this done. They've activated Larry Fitzgerald from the COVID-19 list. This is like activating, to me, it's like activating Optimus Prime. So I think it's pretty cool. Kyler Murray's coming out there. Look for your Larry Fitzgerald as a sneaky flex. Might only get you 1 touchdown. But I got a good feeling about it, so just trust me on that. Kyler Murray, Kenyon Drake, DeAndre Hopkins, all worth the play in this. Hey Arnold and the rest of the group with the tight ends, I can rely on them. On the Giants side of things, it's not a lot of fantasy value. I mean, this team is 5-7. I think we're actually seeing a positive shift. I think, the world is being righted. and God put his hand in, something happened, that the NFC East might actually have a winning team get a playoff home game as opposed to a losing team making it to the playoffs. Wayne Gallman against Seattle had 135 yards rushing on 16 carries, 8.4 yards a carry. Let me say that again. Wayne Gallman. Let me say that again. Against Seattle. Let me say that again. On the road against the 12th man. So, Wayne Gallman's worth the play in this matchup, and so is Evan Engram. Outside of that, there's really nobody. I got to tell you, for the Giants, I'm going to go with Arizona, thinking somehow, some way, this team is going to be able to pull off a win and stop the bleeding in Arizona. They have a 6-6 record. This one's either going to put them above or below 500. That's what they tell me in our mathematics department here at Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And the next one we got up here is Lake Minnetonka, the home state of Prince, going up against the Prince of the NFL. Or, I don't know, maybe he's the grandpa. I don't know what he is anymore. All I know is that there's 4 downs in the NFL, Tom. Minnesota at Tampa Bay. What do you have for this?
Yeah, well, Minnesota lucky to get out of that Jacksonville game with a win, having to go to overtime. I don't know if that says something about Minnesota or if that says something about Jacksonville, but, you know, Minnesota's got to go up against Tom Brady here, and that's not something they're used to doing. Tom Brady and the Bucs should be a great game temperature-wise. 81 degrees is what they're set for kickoff at 1 o'clock on Sunday. It's hard for me to compare these two teams because they're two apples and oranges teams if you look at just the names. But you got to look at the numbers when you're looking at fantasy. You got to look at the value you're going to get. You got to look at what this guy's going to do for your team, project the points, and move on. You know, the top guy for Minnesota, Dalvin Cook, number 2 on the rankings. And the top guy receiving-wise, look out. I'm not going to say Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson. Guy's been on fire. Number 9 on my wide receiver rankings, while Adam Thielen is 25. Kyle Rudolph getting himself back in the game now. We're not seeing Irv Smith, but he's number 24 on the rankings. Kirk Cousins, number 27 on the other side of the ball for the Bucs. I think this is where you're going to make more money. Of course, Tom Brady, he's going to be a top 10 quarterback, number 6 on the quarterback rankings. Ronald Jones, number 15. Leonard Fournette, number 26. And this is where a lot of the talent is as well, is that wide receiver. 22 for Mike Evans on the rankings. Chris Godwin's 32. Antonio Brown still trying to get in the mix of things, number 47. And Rob Gronkowski, number 5 on the tight end ranking. So you got to look at the actual value versus return, not just the names. So you know, if you have a tough decision, it's easy to make because math is math. And math is math. I got to go with the older guy. I got to go with Tom Brady because he's able to do that math. He's going to lead the Bucs to a victory over the Vikings.
Yeah, you know, I think it says something about Jacksonville's fight. I think it says something about Mike Glennon. I think it says something about these guys just weathering a storm on what you don't know in Jacksonville is like, is this team trying to get the number 1 pick? What are they doing? I've never been for that, and I never will be for that. It's just not in my blood. So I will preface by saying that I am not for that by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not saying that's what they're doing. I'm just saying if it was, that you do not have my vote on that one. But Minnesota, yeah, having a fight to get out of that one alive, and that game was in Minnesota. What I thought the Super Bowl was going to be a couple of years ago, and it was close, very, very close to happening. So, but it didn't go in their direction for Minnesota, nor did it go in their direction for Jacksonville. In this direction right now, Minnesota has to travel to the home state of Jacksonville, but they're going to go south and play Tampa instead. And Minnesota in this matchup, for me, obviously you play Dalvin Cook. That's a no-brainer. There's nothing that's going to stop you from doing that. So, you know, we look at this right now and look at the game. Kirk Cousins didn't have a bad day, but it was against Jacksonville. Dalvin Cook had another 100-plus yard game with 120 on 32 carries. Justin Jefferson continues to impress. Adam Thielen's involved. Those are the 3 guys you play, Dalvin, Justin, and Adam Thielen. On the other side of it for Tampa, you got to play Tom Brady. Ronald Jones is a running back, low-end 2, high-end 3. I think he's a 3, so he's a flex guy. You got to play Gronk in this game. If Godwin's able to play, you put him out there. He's got a finger injury right now. But him and Mike Evans are worth the play. Antonio Brown is still relatively quiet, so I wouldn't necessarily put him out there unless he's a flex position guy and you have an emergency wide receiver 4. And I'm going to also go with Tampa Bay at home in this one. Before we take our first step aside, Mr. Sofka, inside of the, not one of or not a, but the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub. We have Denver at Carolina. What do you got?
Yeah, Denver's a good team if you think about it, but don't think too hard because I don't think they're going to do that much in this game. And you just compare these two teams. You know, first thing you always look at is who's the better quarterback. I got Drew Lock ranked number 28 this week. I got Teddy Bridgewater ranked number 19. Staying with Carolina, I got Christian McCaffrey, number 1 overall, number 1 running back. He's going to be back with a force here. Then I look at the other side of the ball, Melvin Gordon, 28, Phillip Lindsay, 46. Then I continue on the receiver. Well, this is where it can balance out a little bit because DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel are both on the COVID list here, so that's going to basically leave Robbie Anderson. Robbie Anderson coming in at number 23 on the rankings. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ball, you got, Jerry Jeudy, 57, Tim Patrick, 55. The one guy I can count on to catch the ball over there in Denver, Noah Fant, number 9 on the rankings. I can't count on the tight end on the other team, so it's a little bit of back and forth there. It's a little bit of, well, this guy's better than this guy. You know, you can find yourself getting lost in numbers. Don't get lost in numbers. Numbers are the numbers. I got to go with Carolina in this game at home.
Yeah, I mean, Denver can be a lot of things. You know, they definitely have talent, but the quarterback situation has been an issue because they couldn't find the right one, or they couldn't, or, you know, then you had Tim Tebow, where they didn't hold on to. Peyton Manning retired. There's a lot of different things that have gone on, and then they dealt with injuries, and they dealt with the carousel that they had and the issues that they had with Brock Osweiler and what they did with him, didn't do with him, paid him, and he was on another team making money off of them. So there's a lot of stuff going on that wasn't favorable for them, and now we look at Denver and say, you know, they have talent. You know, this is one of the things where you don't blame the head coach. Talked about this in the first hour, you know, where you look at the game and you go, okay, you know what, this isn't on the head coach. Like, Denver's got talent. They've got youth. They're going to be a good team. It's just going to take some time. That's just the reality. And if you don't want to hear that, I mean, that's the truth. So they did go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs, made it interesting 22-16. Shout out to that. You know, Melvin Gordon, of course I didn't play him because he hasn't been great, and he had 131 yards. So Melvin Gordon is worth the play in this game. Noah Fant, also worth the play. Tim Patrick's been sneaky. He's a flex guy. He had a couple touchdowns in the matchup. Judy's been falling down here. I put him as a flex. KJ Hamler as a flex behind the two of them. But a lot of flex going on. Melvin Gordon's a running back 2, in my opinion. Noah Fant is a tight end 1. Not the number 1 overall, but a tight end 1 in my opinion. At least at this point, he's got that. And then we look at the fact that Christian McCaffrey, as much as he is back, he also hit the COVID-19 list. So we'll see the shoulder AC joint. If he's able to play, then he is worth putting out there, Mr. McCaffrey. Teddy Bridgewater is questionable with an undisclosed injury right now. So in this matchup, I don't like either quarterback on either side. Mike Davis is your play if Christian doesn't play. If Christian does play, he's your guy. Robbie Anderson, I told you, was going to wear his Carolina blue well, and he has. He is worth the play as well on that side. DJ Moore, a sneaky flex in this week as a wide receiver 4. I'd probably put him. I'm going to have to pick the Carolina team at home. You know, I don't knock Denver, and I'm not overly sold on Carolina, but I'll stick with Carolina in this matchup. With that being said, Mike and I are going to take a step aside. Jacksonville sucks when they play Tennessee on Sundays. It's just a historic thing. When they play Tennessee on a Sunday, it's usually not good. The Jaguars are 1 and a lot of losses right now. So we'll talk about that and so much more as we come back here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. This is Week 14 of the Fantasy Football Power Hour for the 2020-2021 season. Mike and I are very happy to be here and happy to be with you. Happy that the season got off and that we're able to do this. Even if we're playing Tuesday games, at least we're here to do so. And God willing, you are healthy and so are all of your loved ones. If anything's going on with any loved ones or with you, you're in our prayers and our well wishes. If you're doing well, you're in our prayers and our well wishes as well. So with that being said, Mike and I will take a step aside from the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub. When we come back, we will tackle Tennessee at Jacksonville and so much more here where sports meets life inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios. This is Wake Up Call.
Avicoli's Restaurant, located right at the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road, is proud to be your local neighbor, growing with you for over 20 years. We're open 7 days a week for lunch, dinner, and drinks. For takeout, delivery, or catering, call us at 315-622-5100. When you order online and use our promo code ABS10, you will save 10% on your online purchase at myavicolis.com. And make sure to join us monthly for our live on-site broadcast centered around Liverpool athletics. Avicoli's, your local, trusted neighbor right at the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road.
Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
Trapper's Pizza Pub, located on 5950 Butternut Drive in East Syracuse. Right off of Bridge Street is your local community supporter right around the corner. Join us on site at Trapper's Pizza Pub for our live monthly broadcast supporting Central New York student athletes and their sports programs. Call 315-438-4444 for more information. And find us on Facebook and Instagram at Trapper's Pizza Pub. Trapper's Pizza Pub, your local community supporter right around the corner.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. Here with my guy Mike Sofka inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. Make sure you find your way over there to dine in. You can also do curbside pickup, takeout, and delivery by calling 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat. We are inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios enjoying a beautiful wintry day with all of you people out there and hoping that you're all doing well. Next up on the docket is a game that will be played in sunny Florida. Mike said it's going to be 81 in Tampa. Probably be nice in Jacksonville, too. Tennessee at Jacksonville. Mike, what do you got?
Yeah, it's supposed to be near that. It's supposed to be 75, so it should. When did I become the weatherman, Dan? That's what I want to know. Look,
it's a job you can be wrong at 100% of the time and never get fired, Mike, just so you know.
I've seen that. Just as long as you look good, you smile good, and know how to point at the green screen in the right spot.
Exactly.
Look, Tennessee's a better team here. Let's not pull any, punches here, but Tennessee has had its struggles. I mean, they've been losing games they shouldn't have lost. But fantasy-wise, these guys are still going to put up numbers. You will find some fantasy money on both sides of the ball. You don't have to look far for Jacksonville, though. James Robinson's the guy. Been a top 10, now been a top 5, most recently for a lot of the year. Number 3 on the rankings. Mike Glennon did enough, but not quite enough to get the dub. 21 on the rankings. I can't really start any receivers. I hope DJ Chark is going to be back. I hope Laviska Shenault can catch more than rebounds off opponent shoulder pads for touchdowns. But, you take what you can get. Tyler Eifert, I can't play that cat either. Number 28 on my rankings. Looking at Tennessee, though, this is where you're going to find the most value. Ryan Tannehill, number 10 on the rankings. Derrick Henry, number 6. He's been in the top 5 all year. He's going to dip down to number 6. 7 17 for A.J. Brown, and Corey Davis has come on strong this year, number 11 on the rankings. So two good receivers are propping Ryan Tannehill up. Can't really start Jonnu Smith. He's in the 20s as well. I think Jacksonville can make this interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if they did end up winning this game, but I got to go with the reality that Tennessee's probably going to sweep them, and Jacksonville's going to continue their one and whatever record all year.
What is going on with Corey Davis? The former Western Michigan wide receiver, 182 yards, 11 catches, 12 targets, 1 touchdown, almost 20 yards average per catch. What is happening, Corey Davis? We still can't figure you out, and it's been, 3-4 years now? So, with that being said, Corey Davis, A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry, all worth the play in this matchup, in my opinion. Can't really pick anybody on the side of tight end. On Jacksonville's side of things, well, Mike Glennon's still the quarterback, even though Gardner Minshew begged to play. James Robinson is phenomenal. Last week, 2 weeks ago, over 100 yards. This most recent game, 18 carries, 78 yards, and a touchdown. Accounted for more than half of the rushing yards for Jacksonville. Colin Johnson, what did I tell you? What do I say 100 million times on the show? Every quarterback has their guy. Every quarterback has their guy. Did you know that every quarterback has their guy? Well, guess what? Mike Glennon, because he wasn't the starter, he's practicing with the backups, right? He's a backup. He's practicing with that string. He's practicing with the backups. He practiced with Colin Johnson. Colin Johnson's been his number 1 target for 2 weeks. So Colin Johnson's a sneaky play for you. DJ Chark is another play for you. Laviska Shenault is a play for you. Chark, Shenault, Johnson, all flex guys right now. Chark with a slight edge above that as a wide receiver 3. The other 2 guys have 4. But Colin Johnson, once again, you have to circle those moments and understand that every quarterback has their guy. James Robinson has been the one shining moment. Hashtag NCAA tournament in this whole thing for Jacksonville. They're 1 in 1,000 right now. I'm going to pick Tennessee to win this game. I, as Mike said, would also not be surprised if Jacksonville makes it interesting, but I got to go with Tennessee because I have a brain and a pair of eyes, so I got to do that. Indianapolis at Las Vegas, Mike. What do you have for this?
Yeah, Indianapolis has proved to me that they're for real, but I'm not sure they're consistent. And the same thing on the other side of the ball with Las Vegas. You don't know which team's going to show up week to week. Las Vegas almost losing to the Jets the other week, came down to a lucky play with 8 seconds on the clock. But from a fantasy perspective, you got to be able to weed these guys out. And the number 1 guy, obviously, on the field for me is Darren Waller. He's a beast. He's been putting up the yardage. He's been getting the touchdowns. And Derek Carr has not worried about throwing the ball to Darren Waller. He does that very frequently. Darren Waller, number 2 on the rankings this week. Josh Jacobs probably out again. He scooped up Devontae Booker. Like I said, when every week I put out the waivers, the upgrades, and the ads. It's a free video every week. And he was on my ads a couple weeks ago. And sure enough, here he is, Devontae Booker, stepping up in Josh Jacobs' absence. Derek Carr, though, don't get so excited about that Darren Waller connection. He's number 20 on my rankings. Going over to Indianapolis. Indianapolis is being led by Phillip Rivers. He's that middle-of-the-road guy. Number 16 on my rankings. He's going to need Jonathan Taylor. He's going to need Nyheim Hines. I think both of those guys will show up. Jonathan Taylor, 14 on the rankings. Nyheim Hines, number 17. Can't really trust the wide receivers. It's very spotty there. It's very inconsistent on everybody's part. The one guy who hasn't been inconsistent is Trey Burton. He sneaks in for a touchdown usually every game. Doesn't put up much yardage, maybe 30, 40, 50 yards, but a touchdown and that yardage makes you fantasy relevant at number 19 on the tight end rankings. Looking at this game on a math perspective, you can sort out the fantasy guys. More importantly, you want to sort out who's going to win this game. I think Indianapolis is the better team. I know Vegas is at times looking like, hey, they can beat anybody. But then you go out and you put up a stinker like that to the Jets, and it makes me think that you're just inconsistent. I know Indianapolis has to travel to Vegas for this game, but I still like Indianapolis in this game to beat the Raiders in their home crib.
Yeah, I got to go with Indy in this game, too, because they know they're fighting for a division, and they got to bounce back, and they got to do it quick. I know they got They got to win, and when I say bounce back, I'm talking about the fact that they split with the Titans, so they're going to have to really be on it and win as many games as they possibly can as they move forward, knowing that this is going to be a very tight race. So with that being stated, Indy on the road, let's start with them first. Phillip Rivers, not a bad play in this game, but he's a quarterback too. Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines, both worth the play. T.Y. Hilton only has 2 touchdowns this season, but he scored them both in the last 2 games. He scored both of the last 2 weeks. So no touchdowns all season, and then a touchdown at the end of November, a touchdown at the beginning of December. So that puts T.Y. as a wide receiver 3, a play for you. Michael Pittman also in this one. I think they're both worth a play, and they're both on the same line because T.Y. has just not been consistent. I like Hines because he's involved in a lot. He had 6 carries for 10 yards, but still had a touchdown. Jonathan Taylor involved as well. And then Mike brought up Trey Burton, and Trey Burton, not a bad play. Him and Jack Doyle not doing too much. I'd have him as a tight end 2s. And then for the Vegas Raiders, I'm not going to be sold too much on Derek Carr in this matchup. And it's more of a Devontae Booker, not a bad play for you. Darren Waller had 200 yards on 13 catches, targeted 17 times for 2 touchdowns. This man got me just shy of 50 points in fantasy. It's like half of some people's score all week. So Darren Waller's worth the play. Henry Ruggs, and that's because Darren Waller's been their best receiver last year and this year. Henry Ruggs, even though he's a tight end, Henry Ruggs is worth the play as well in the matchup, but Ruggs is still a wide receiver 3 because of his inconsistency. I got the Colts at home. Next one, Mike, Jets at Seahawks. What do you have for this?
Yeah, the Jets I think they had their last gasp last week when they thought they won that game against Vegas, and then the Raiders made that big, Derek Carr made that big heave to Henry Ruggs, who beat their DB. I still can't get over that situation. The Jets are like that guy who is going to die in the movie. And just before he dies, he picks his head up and he shrugs a little bit. And he's trying to might up the strength to get going, and then he just collapses back down. That's where the Jets are. They're collapsing back down. They gave everything they had to win that game, and it's mental at this point for them. Seattle's the better team, but Seattle let the Giants come into their crib and lay the smack down on them. I think they're going to bounce back. I don't think Russell Wilson's that guy that's just going to lay there and take that. Russell Wilson's number 2 on my quarterback rankings. Chris Carson, number 10 on the running back rankings. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, both wide receiver 1s, 5 and 10 respectively on my rankings. And Will Dissly is the only tight end I can consider, but he's ranked 32, so I'm staying away there. Going over on the other side of the ball, though, to the Jets, not a lot to write home about here, not a lot to make money on. Sam Darnold, 31 out of 32. I can't start the running backs. Even though Ty Johnson looks like the guy to start there, I can't start him. He's number 39 on my rankings. Maybe Denzel Mims as an emergency flex, 36 on my rankings. But Perryman and Crowder, they're in the 40s and 50s. I can't rank a tight end on that team. I think the Jets are just they're going to be done. I think it's not tanking at this point. I think it's mental at this point. I don't think they can get over that mental stumbling block they had in this past game. I like Seattle in this one big.
Yeah, Seattle again. I mean, they're hosting the 2 teams that play in MetLife. They go up against the Giants, and the Giants go in there and beat down the 12th man. The Jets are going in there now, and I don't see that happening by any stretch of the imagination. Ty Johnson, shout out to him, 22 carries, 104 yards, and a touchdown. Came out of Maryland, and he's their leading running back right now. Because of what they allowed to Wayne Gallman, I'm going to put Ty Johnson as a very sneaky running back 4 flex for you because of that. Outside of that, Jamison Crowder is your best bet. He's been your best bet all season for the Jets. On the other side of it, for the Seattle Seahawks, I would tell you that, in my opinion, obviously Russell Wilson, obviously Chris Carson, Tyler Lockett, and DK Metcalf. Those are easy plays for you. And I look at Seattle's defense and special teams. And, Mike, I'm going to second you on the movie, analogy, but I'm going to tell you the Jets are the guy who is about to go down in the basement in the horror movie where everybody screams at the camera, don't go down to the basement. And, yeah, he shrugs his shoulders, but he still goes down in the basement and he gets murdered. I mean, it's reality. The Jets are the guy where it's like, we've made it to the end of the movie. All we have to do is to get into the the vehicle whose lights are on and whose engine is running. All we got to do is hop in and go, and he sits down in the middle of the field and has his head chopped off. Those are the Jets. So, with that being said, I'm sorry for creating such a graphic picture. I really hope I don't think about that later tonight when I go night-night. But Green Bay at Detroit, Mike, what do you have for this?
Yeah, these are two teams headed in opposite directions. Now, I know the Lions snuck out that win last week against the Bears, but I think, again, these are two different teams. One team is superior to the other, and obviously it's Green Bay who I'm talking about, the superior team. Aaron Rodgers, number 3 on the quarterback rankings. His other buddy, Aaron, is number 5 on the rankings for running back. So 3 and 5. Oh, and then you got a number 1 in Devontae Adams, number 1 receiver. And you know what? Robert Tonyan's a bottom-end tight end, 1 at number 12 on the rankings this week. You got to like Green Bay in this one. On the other side of the ball, you can find a little bit of fantasy value, though. DeAndre Swift should be fully back this week, number 12 on the rankings. T.J. Hawkinson's the guy you want, though. He's still going to catch the ball. He's number 3 on the tight end rankings. He's going to help Matt Stafford get up to number 14 on the quarterback rankings. And again, I have to go with the better team here. It's just math at a certain point. I'm going with Green Bay.
Yeah, you got to go with Green Bay in this game. Obviously, Green Bay 9-3 on the season. They have a comfortable cushion of 3 games over Minnesota right now, which is some good stuff. So, I would definitely tell you that you got to play Green Bay. They went up against the Eagles, took care of business at home in a big way, 30-16. And Jalen Hurts got to play with Carson Wentz, which is interesting to see if they're going to do that the rest of the season because of the fact that this is a very, this is not a great season for Philadelphia. So they're just going to kind of see what they have for the future type of thing. Green Bay, obviously, you have to play Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones. Jamal Williams, take a look at him. He's been reduced again. So it's Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams, Allen Lazard. Not a bad play. Robert Tonyan, I agree. He's a tight end 1, but he's on the lower end of tight end 1s. And then on the other side of it, to look at health, DeAndre Swift once again didn't play. Pissed off me and other fantasy owners, including my guy Rudy. So Adrian Peterson's worth the play for you, but he's a running back 3. And then outside of that, Kenny Galladay is questionable with a hip injury. So that leaves Marvin Jones for you. If Kenny's able to play, you put him in. If not, Marvin Jones is a wide receiver 4. T.J. Hawkinson, still a tight end 1, but the value lies in Green Bay. The points lie in Green Bay, and look for Aaron Rodgers to have himself a fun day in this one. Saints at the Eagles, Mike. What do you have for this?
Well, this is the same as the previous game, Packers and Lions. These are two teams headed in opposite directions. And hats off to the Saints. Last year they went without Drew Brees. They went 8-0 while he was out. And they're continuing to do a steady climb this year as well with Taysom Hill at the helm. The Saints are 10-2. They've secured their spot in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to take their foot off the gas, though. How can you when you're going to face Philadelphia? You're going into Philly, which isn't an easy place to play. But then you look at the players and you realize it's going to be easier for them than it is Philadelphia. Jalen Hurts is going to get the start this week. He's number 24 on the quarterback rankings. Miles Sanders struggling to do some things, and that's just the team around him. They don't block very well. Number 27 on the running back rankings. I can't start any receiver on this team because I don't know which one's going to show up, if any. Travis Fulgham looked like he was going to, conquer the world for a couple weeks there. Then he's been real quiet. The one guy who's not quiet, though, is Dallas Goedert. He's number 7 on my tight end rankings. Going over to the other side of the ball, though, New Orleans is where you're going to make your money. Taysom Hill, number 8 on the quarterback rankings. Alvin Kamara, the stud, number 7 on the running back rankings. Michael Thomas, number 19, and Jared Cook, number 31. These numbers don't impress me totally, but you can spot pick the few guys who are going to really help you. But again, looking at the two teams, opposite directions, you got to go with the team that they're just a great team all the way around. How can you take away your quarterback and keep winning games year after year? That means you got a good crew around him that can make that happen. They can right the ship without the captain. I got to go with New Orleans.
It also means you have a good coach with Teddy Bridgewater and Taysom Hill stepping in the system still working. And you got to make certain nuances and changes, but that's where the coach comes in, those nuances and the changes, and then the talent of the backups is there. Who would have thought that we would have had, speaking of backup, Carson Wentz as a backup when he's not hurt? But that is the case. In New Orleans' case, Taysom Hill is worth the play. Alvin Kamara, Latavius as a flex. Michael Thomas as well. And, you know, if you got to go to Traquan or Emmanuel Sanders, you're digging deep to wide receivers 4 or 5 at that point. And then Jared Cook is another guy that's, he had a touchdown against the Falcons, so that's good. But at the same time, you know what I mean? It's hard to really lean on him. He is playing against Philadelphia. So I will tell you that, you know, if it was up to me, I would consider Jared Cook a low-end tight end 1. On Philadelphia's side, Jalen Hurts taking over as a starter, like I said, for an uninjured Carson Wentz. Wentz usually gets injured every single year, and somebody has to take over. Jalen Hurts is taking over right now. I think he adds a dynamic like a Taysom Hill where he could do some cool things. So it's not a bad look to look at somebody like him. And as a quarterback, too, if you could play 2. Miles Sanders is worth the play. Greg Ward keeps moving up the list, the former quarterback that was at Houston. And he's moved up the depth chart over Alshon Jeffrey, Travis Fulgham, and so on and so forth, except for Jalen Reagor. I think the money's in Sanders and Goddard. I think the game is in the hands of the Saints, and I'm picking the Saints easily in this one. Next one we have up, Mr. Sofka, in this matchup before we take our final step aside, inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub. Make sure you join our Winning Fantasy Football group on Facebook by searching Winning Fantasy Football and clicking on the group, and we'll let you in. Atlanta at Los Angeles Chargers. What do you got?
Yeah, both teams coming off a loss. Both teams looked bad in those losses, too. The Falcons at home to the Saints, and the Chargers, of course, getting whipped in their home crib by the Patriots. Patriots settled Justin Herbert back down to earth. Brutal game for him, but this game should be a little bit easier. I think Justin Herbert's the number 5 quarterback this week. Austin Eckler, number 4 running back this week. And here we go, the dangerous combination. Keenan Allen, number 4. So you got 3 top 5 players in your trinity there in the top 3. That's great. That says a lot about your team and what you're going to do in this game. Hunter Henry, number 8 on the tight end rankings. I can't really start any other running back, any other wide receiver from these teams. So again, it's Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, and Justin Herbert are the big guys there. Going over to Atlanta, there's some fantasy value there as well. Julio Jones, number 7 on the wide receiver rankings. Calvin Ridley, not too far behind at number 13. They're going to make Matt Ryan the number 12 quarterback this week. And Hayden Hurst, spotty, inconsistent, the number 15 ranked tight end this week. Todd Gurley should make it back, but he's just a 32. He's number 32 on my rankings this week. Looking at this game, you know, Atlanta smoked Las Vegas the other week, and the Chargers just got smoked. But I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say the Chargers rebounded in this game, and the Falcons proved that Vegas game a couple weeks ago was an anomaly. I'm going to take the Chargers at home.
Yeah, I mean, the Chargers putting up a goose egg at home against the Patriots 45-0 was shocking. I didn't think that they would get shut out. I thought that they had a chance to win. I picked them to win. I said whenever you're playing up against Bill Belichick's mind, there's always the chance you could lose, but to lose by almost 50 points and to not score a single point is very strange for me. I think the Chargers will bounce back. I'm going to pick them as well. Atlanta's defense is atrocious. We've talked about that. So their rushing game is not good. 3 different running backs, and they all amounted. The 3 running backs together look like one running back. 21 carries for 70 yards. No touchdowns. Matt Ryan didn't even look good. So the best plays for you in this one are Calvin Ridley would be your best. That would be the number 1 play for you. Julio Jones would be the 2 for you. I do think Calvin Ridley is passing him. So I like Ridley and I like Jones to put out there. They're both wide receiver 1s, but I'd pick Ridley over Jones is what I'm saying. I can't really trust in Todd Gurley. I'm done doing that on my side. On the side of the Chargers, I know their numbers didn't look great, but Keenan Allen is worth the play in this matchup. I like Justin Herbert in the matchup because of the defense he's playing. And I would tell you Austin Eckler, Hunter Henry as well. And, you know, maybe an outside look at Mike Williams if you need somebody. He had 9 targets, but his efficiency wasn't there. So he'd be probably a wide receiver 5, if not a wide receiver 4 maybe. And I'm going to pick the Chargers at home in the matchup. Washington football team against San Francisco. A team that's called a football team going up against a team that I'm surprised can even field a football team with all their injuries and COVID-19 positive tests. What do you have for this, Mr. Sofka?
Yeah, Washington's no slouch. Washington just beat Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. I think that says a lot for Pittsburgh and a lot more about Washington. Washington said after the game, Montez Sweat and crew said, that Baltimore had exposed some things in Pittsburgh the week before, and sure enough, Washington capitalized on that. But let's get down to earth. Let's get serious here on the fantasy rankings. Alex Smith is he is what he is. He's doing what he can. He's number 30 on the quarterback rankings because he doesn't have a lot around him. Antonio Gibson might be out with a toe. He's got the turf toe. That's a very painful injury and can have you out weeks, just like a high ankle sprain. So that makes J.D. McKissick number 29 on the rankings. Peyton Barber's going to step in like he did this past week, but he's number 76 on my rankings. I can't start that guy. He's supposed to be the power runner. I just don't believe they're going to be able to power run in this game. Terry McLaurin, number 8 on the wide receiver rankings, and Logan Thomas, number 16. Bouncing over to San Fran. San Fran just got whipped by the Bills in their own crib, so you got to take that into consideration. But looking across the board, there's not a whole big bunch of fantasy value. The one guy that seems to shine lately is Jordan Reed. Hats off to Jordan Reed and Trey Burton in this league. At one time, both those guys were backup quarterbacks at the University of Florida, and both those guys have made a name for themselves, albeit recently on the mid-range level, but they're still NFL players. And Jordan Reed is NFL and fantasy relevant this week as number 14 on the rankings. The wide receivers, Samuel and Ayuk, I can't really start those guys. If I had to start one, I'd go with Ayuk over 39 and Samuel 46 on my rankings. Raheem Mostert, trying to get back into the swing of things. He's number 22 on my rankings. Jeff Wilson's going to be the passing down guy at number 38. And Nick Mullins is a bottom-of-the-barrel quarterback. I can't start him. I'll tell you something. I think Washington is going to be able to pull off the victory here. Watch out for Washington now. They're going to win some games here. Not enough to make the playoffs, but they're going to win some games. I'll take Washington in this game.
Yeah, I'm taking Washington in the game too, Mike. I'm taking the football team, even though there's 32 football teams. This one gets to name themselves that. So I'm going with them in the matchup. I do think Washington's going to win. I'm not threatened by, if I'm a team going into San Fran, it's not threatening to me. I'm riding a high right now if I'm Washington. I'm 5-7. I still have the opportunity to go to the playoffs, and I just beat the team that nobody beat in the country in the prior 11 games. There was only one undefeated team in the nation, and that was the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now they're not. Now they're 11-1 because of Washington, who won on the road, like you said, at Heinz Field. I've been there, 23-17. Craziness going on, and a big old some of all of this right here. Alex Smith, not only is he alive, the man is healthy, he could come back to football, he is a starter, and he just beat the top team in the nation. Let's go. Record-wise, I still think Kansas City's the best, but I'm saying record-wise. Logan Thomas, to me, is worth the play in this matchup, which is the first time I've said that all year. Alex Smith is a quarterback 2, so if you can play 2, this is not a bad week to play him because he's playing up against San Fran. And outside of that, Terry McLaurin is worth a look as well for Washington. Antonio Gibson, doubtful to play. Mike made mention of his injury, so just watch that. On the other side for San Fran, there's really nobody to write home about except for Brandon Ayuk, which I would put as a wide receiver 4 flex. And Deebo Samuel, I was put as a wide receiver 3, probably a flex for you as well. I got to go with Washington on the road. And with that being said, Mike and I are going to step aside for our final fast break. When we come back, God willing, this will be a normal week of football. And our Sunday game will be played on Sunday Night Football, and our Monday game will be played on Monday night, and we won't have any Tuesday or Wednesday games. That is the hope. We don't know what's going to happen. Buffalo just blew out, or I shouldn't say blew out. Buffalo just handled the Niners. The Steelers just lost to the football team that is in Washington, D.C. They play each other in Buffalo this week, and Cleveland against old Cleveland are playing each other as the Ravens, who the Browns became, and the Browns coming back in 99. The two Browns teams, one of old and one of new, will play each other on Monday Night Football. We'll talk about all of that right after this for Sports Meets Life on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. You are listening and watching the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. Right here inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios, Mike and I have 2 more games to discuss to get you ready for Week 14 in fantasy, and we will do that right after this fast break. Mike and I have 2 more games to discuss to get you ready for Week 14 in fantasy, and we will do that.
Cafe Cabal Mobile Cafe brings the cafe experience to you. We'll roll out to your neighborhood or office, ready to serve our locally crafted espresso bar to our loyal patrons. Inquire at cafecabal.com. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, located on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, is home to over 40 flavors with more than 200 flavors in their total wheelhouse. Sky's the limit for this sweet and savory Central New York company. Keep it local at your parties, fundraisers, wedding showers, baby showers, and more by calling 315-450-MA-PA. That's 315-450-6272 for popcorn bars with custom flavors and colors at your upcoming event. Make sure to visit them on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. And for more information, go to maandpazsnacks.com. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you? The Millhouse Market, located on 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York, is worth the drive every time. Make sure you download their app and head out there Tuesday through Sunday. Their restaurant is now open inside. If you want to continue to socially distance and pick up your food, they have the drive-up window. The downloadable app on the Google Play or Apple App Store is easy and user-friendly. Go to the Millhouse Market on either one of those, Apple App or Google Play. You have the entire menu at your fingertips. Everything mouth-watering and getting your taste buds going crazy. Their concoctions are things that you don't even think about. The steak and blue pizza, the bee sting pizza, everything that they have, the pear and the gorgonzola and the different things that they put together, the sweet with the tart, the savory with the sweet. It's so amazing. Of course, their brownies, their cookies, their muffins, everything is fantastical. The sun-dried tomato mozzarella bread is 1 in a million. And it is all there for you for the taking at the Millhouse Market. Get the app, download it, contactless pay, drive up to the window, grab your food, and go. Or go inside and see the renovations they made. The Millhouse Market, only getting better in the toughest of times, which says a lot about who they are, how much they care, and how dedicated they are to the community. 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York. The Millhouse Market is worth the drive every time. With that being stated, Mike and I are here for our final 2 games inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. And you can go there for curbside pickup, takeout, and delivery by calling 315-487-2222. Inside the Cafe Cabal Studios, I'm getting a pumpkin spice chai today. You better be getting one yourself. I'm going to have to mail one down to Mike, and I'm going to hope that it doesn't spill when I send it in the cargo back of the plane that's on its way with all the goodies to Mr. Sofka. Mike and I got a couple games left to go. First one is Sunday Night Football. I cannot wait to get some popcorn ready from Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory and watch this baby. Steelers at Bills, what you got, Mr. Sofka?
Yeah, well, the Steelers coming off that loss and the Bills coming off the win on the road, and look out. I think the Steelers can lose this one as well. I think that there's a possibility the Steelers can lose another one down the road too and end up with 3 losses. We'll get into that as time permits next time. Pittsburgh, though. You got to look at Pittsburgh. When you look at Pittsburgh, you always got to look at Ben Roethlisberger. He's going to find a way to sneak something out. He's number 17 on the quarterback rankings. James Conner should be back. They need him. Gosh knows that Benny Snell wasn't able to get it done, but I think that speaks more for Pouncey being out on the offensive line. I think that they just didn't have the direction they needed. They didn't have that strength up the middle, and that's what you need when you're running the ball. James Conner, number 30 on my rankings. Juju Smith-Schuster, number 29. Deontay Johnson, number 16. Who would have thought you had Juju Smith-Schuster? Chase Claypool was playing out of his mind for a while, yet Deontay Johnson is the guy that you need to go with. Again, number 16. Chase Claypool, number 33. And the guy I like, especially in the red zone, touchdown-only league, is Eric Ebron, number 6 on the tight end rankings. On the other side of the ball at Buffalo, There's a little more fantasy money here, I think, and Josh Allen, number 7 on my quarterback rankings. He's going to be throwing the ball to Stephon Diggs, number 3. And Cole Beasley always seems to find his way in the end zone or find his way to be fantasy relevant, number 20 on my wide receiver rankings. Dawson Knox, I know you've scored 2 touchdowns in 2 weeks, but that's all you've done all year. Can't start that cat. Looking over at the running backs, Zach Moss has been hit or miss. He's in the 30s. I know, check that. He's in the 50s, 54 on my rankings. I almost can't read my own writing. And Devin Singletary, number 23 on the rankings. Considering where these two teams have come from and where they're going, Pittsburgh, I hate to tell you, you're going to suffer another W this week. I'm going with Buffalo.
And so, yeah, Pittsburgh, I'm going to agree with you that Pittsburgh will be on the wrong side of the win-loss column, and Buffalo will get the victory in this. I believe this. And the cool thing about this is this feels like a playoff game in the making that has the rights to go to the Super Bowl. Like, that's what this game feels like inside of the AFC this week. Could be something really, really special. I don't know if this is going to be a massively high-scoring game, but I do believe Buffalo is going to get the victory in this matchup. And to look at it, on the side of the Steelers first, Anthony McFarland didn't do much of anything. Benny Snell, 8 carries, 5 yards. McFarland, 4 carries, 15 yards. It's just like, they'll throw up in your mouth. Big Ben is the guy to play, 305 yards, 33 completions in the last game, threw 53 passes in the loss, trying to get a win. So I like Big Ben in this one. I can't trust in the rushing attack for them in this matchup. Juju is worth the play as a lower-end 1, higher-end 2. Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, and James Washington are all guys that are flexes right now. Because Chase has been the guy, James Washington's been the guy, Deontay Johnson's been the guy. So they're all wide receiver 3s to me because it's hard to choose. Juju's at 2. It's a great problem to have in reality, but in fantasy, it's a big conundrum. James Washington led the way with 80 yards, 1 touchdown. Deontay had 71 with a touchdown in this last week. Eric Ebron is also worth the play for you, getting you some good yardage at tight end. Got you 68 yards, 7 catches, targeted 11 times. The second highest targeted player by Ben Roethlisberger in the loss to Washington. On Buffalo's side of it, Zach Moss is doing not a lot right now. Devin Singletary's a running back 3. Cole Beasley has been doing good stuff. He's still a low-end 2, high-end 3 in my opinion. I like Stephon Diggs as well. And Gabriel Davis, not a bad play. He gets in the end zone and gets you some good yardage. And Dawson Knox is a tight end 2 on the lower end for me for Buffalo. And, of course, you got to play Josh Allen. 4 touchdowns, no picks, 32 of 40, 375 yards. He has been fantastic. And so fans in Buffalo finally breathing, I think, some air right now, even though the air is thin in Buffalo with it being winter, have some room to breathe right now, which is awesome. So I'm going to go with Buffalo at home. Baltimore against the Browns. So old Browns against the new Browns. What do you got?
Yeah, well, the Ravens looked good against the Cowboys, but that was the Cowboys. Cleveland seems to be a team that's shown up for real, but I have concerns. In the first half, they put up 38 points. They were leading 38-7 at the half. And then they let Tennessee come back and score 35. They were able to sneak out the win, 41-35, though. And, you think, well, big deal. They won a game. What are you talking about, Mike? Well, I'm talking about Ryan Tannehill lit them up for 389 yards and 3 touchdowns. Corey Davis lit them up for 182 yards. The positive thing is Baltimore can't throw the ball as well as Cleveland can. You look at the other side here, the Ravens are a team that can run the ball with efficiency. The Ravens have to jump out early because if they get behind, just like Tennessee did to Cleveland, they're not going to score 28 unanswered points in the second half because they're not built that way. Lamar Jackson he's not the field general in that way. He doesn't throw the ball down the field. They run the ball down your throat. When they're done doing that, they run the ball down your throat some more. And the guy who leads the way is, of course, Lamar Jackson, number 11 on my rankings. And just like this past week against Dallas, you're going to see a mix. But the guy who's going to lead that committee in the backfield is J.K. Dobbins, number 31 on my rankings. Mark Ingram and Gus Edwards, they look good at times, flashes in the pan. But the guy who's going to get the lion's share of the carries is who you want. Number 31 on the rankings is J.K. Dobbins. Mark Andrews, number 10 on the tight end rankings. And I can't start any of the Baltimore receivers because of that fact they can't move the ball down the field. Yeah, Marquise Brown just scored a touchdown. Yes, Miles Boykin came out of nowhere and scored a touchdown this past week. Des Bryant didn't take the field. Devin DuVernay, he looked okay at times. He was spotty, mostly on returns. On the other side of the ball, though, Cleveland has a couple guys you're going to want to start. One of those guys is Nick Chubb. The other one is Kareem Hunt. Nick Chubb, number 11 on the rankings. Kareem Hunt, number 25. Jarvis Landry, the only wide receiver to speak of, number 24 on the wide receiver rankings. And Austin Hooper, spotty at best lately, number 17 on the tight end rankings. Baker Mayfield, though, cool your jets. Don't get overly excited here. You're number 29 on my rankings because that Baltimore defense is going to get after Baker Mayfield. I know Baker's better outside the pocket and on the move, but I don't think he's going to be as effective on that against the Ravens. I'm going to take the Ravens in this one to win another game.
What happened to Baltimore? Here we are thinking that they're the best shot at taking down Kansas City in the AFC. They're in third place in the AFC North. They're 7-5. They lost 3 of their last 4 games. At Patriots, Titans at home, at Steelers. They just defeated the Cowboys, but the Cowboys aren't a good team. So what is going on with Baltimore? 5 losses? They're only 2 games above 500 right now. That's insane. And when these teams played each other at the beginning of the season, Lamar Jackson took care of business. 3 touchdowns, no picks. Baker had 1 and 1. Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb led the way for 132 yards combined. No touchdowns on the ground, though. Lamar Jackson led the way rushing the ball. Mark Ingram and J.K. Dobbins got it. This was the first game of the season, so it was the first ever NFL game for J.K. Dobbins. Marquise Hollywood Brown had 101 yards. Willie Snead came to play. Mark Andrews got in the end zone twice. Odell was on the other side, but only had 3 catches for 22. We know he's out. Jarvis Landry led the way, which you would anticipate Cleveland to do in this matchup. I'm going to start with Baltimore. On Baltimore's side of things, coming off of this, I would tell you that obviously Lamar Jackson and J.K. Dobbins are worth the play. Marquise Hollywood Brown is a wide receiver 3, and outside of that, there's nobody I really look to. And when it comes to where they're sitting at right now, wide receiver wise, and then with Mark Andrews not being out there for them, that's something that could hurt them. On Cleveland's side of things, Baker Mayfield, I'm not sold to put him out there. I like Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. You got to put out Jarvis Landry as a low-end 2, high-end 3. Austin Hooper has been extremely underwhelming in this matchup. I'm going to pick Baltimore, but I think this will be a better game than it was in the beginning, potentially. I really do think that Cleveland's 9-3, folks. Remember, Cleveland's coming into this game as the home team and the better record. So I just want to remind everybody, because Baltimore, I think, is going to have the edge with a lot of people, but Cleveland's coming in as the better overall record, just to remind you, because I know that that's kind of shocking. It is to me, at least. With that being said, going with Baltimore like Mike, and, everybody wants to be like Mike. So I want to thank Mike Sofka, Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com. Much appreciated. And, of course, our winning fantasy football group you could join for free on Facebook by going to the Facebook tab and typing in the search bar, Winning Fantasy Football. And you can have some fun with Mike and I. And, of course, every Wednesday inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub. Mr. Sofka, as always, much love, much respect. Stay safe, stay well, and I'll look forward to talking with you soon.
Sounds good, Dan. Thanks. Awesome. Talk to you next time.
All right, take care. That coming from Mr. Mike Sofka here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, hanging out with us inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, where sports truly meets life. And I want to thank him for being here. And once again, we're both going with the Ravens over the Browns, despite the fact that the Browns somehow have a better record than the Ravens. We're going to go with the Ravens in this matchup. So with all that being said, I want to thank not only Mike, but I want to thank Julian Wiggum for hour number 1 and video number 1 here for Wednesday, December 9th in the Midweek Blitz. I want to thank you for listening, watching, reading, and enjoying on wakeupcalldt.com, listening on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, watching on Facebook Live on facebook.com every Monday through Friday from 9 to 11 simultaneously on facebook.com/live-now-dt. And, of course, checking out our archives on Stitcher, TuneIn, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Spotify, MixLR, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, and our videos on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Much thanks to Cafe Kubal, Carvel DeWitt, Wildcat Sports Pub, Avicoles. Use the promo code at myavicoles.com, AVS10. That's myavicollis.com. Use the promo code AVS10. Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Chick-fil-A Cicero, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, Honda City of Liverpool, Trappers Pizza Pub, the Millhouse Market, and Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. Whether you're doing in-store pickup or online delivery to your home or place of business, go to myandpawspopcorn.com. And like I said, whether you're doing delivery in-store or having it delivered to you, or pardon me, pickup in-store, delivery to you, use the promo code DT20. That's DT20. myandpawspopcorn.com. Use the promo code DT20 for 20% off, courtesy of Wake Up Call and Ma and Paws. With that being said, plenty of great stuff coming up this week. I appreciate y'all tremendously. Thank you for watching the show and listening to the show as well. I hope you have a fantastic day. Find us on Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, Twitter at Call DT, and Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT. And in the meantime, as always, God bless, no stress, do your best. I'll talk to you soon.